Okay, so you were telling me about Elvira and her age and how she is not wearing it.
Well, yeah, I was actually I just saw someone retweeted Elvira, the real Elvira, and I was stunned to discover that Elvira, as in Mistress of the Dark, is still a person. And she has an Instagram and she's on Twitter. And just out of curiosity to see what she looks like these days, I popped on her Instagram, and half the pictures on her Instagram actually show her not as Elvira, as Cassandra Peterson. And I have no idea how old she must be at this point, but I did comment that she looks pretty damn good. In a totally platonic, admiring a celebrity's age kind of a way, in case the tiny one is listening. Yeah. Standard legal disclaimers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then you were saying?
I was about to say, have you seen Vanna White lately?
I have not.
It's incredibly interesting. I am prepared to swear she has not aged at all in the last 30 years.
Oh, that's a photo shoot from 1980. See, the problem is if you just go on Google, you don't know what year that 2005. Right. What year is this? Wow.
Uh-huh.
She really hasn't.
She is 61 years old.
God bless her.
The Pat Sajak hasn't even aged all that much. I mean, honestly, what are they drinking over there?
Well, they are celebrities, so they could be like 9/10 silicone at this point. And botulinum.
Oh dear.
I mean, God knows. But yeah, okay. Wow, Pat Sajak. He also he's it's like Dick Clark.
Yeah.
Dick Clark did not age, and then was dead one day.
Right. So what you're saying is Pat Sajak is the new Dick Clark.
He could be. Who's hosting New Year's Rockin' Eve these days?
Whatever contract Dick Clark had, Pat Sajak has now assumed it.
With the New Year's Rockin' Eve, or are we talking more like a Faustian bargain?
A Faustian bargain. He's 71.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, he also doesn't look it. God, we should be that lucky.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I mean, I look terrible for my age.
It's too late for you.
I was very upset this year because, in January I turned 40.
Mm-hmm.
And,
don't want to hear it.
I know. But, and everybody kept telling me, it's only a number and you're only as old as you feel. I'm like, great. That makes me like 90.
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
my body is clearly 90.
Yeah.
At least. On a good day.
Yeah. I have definitely voided the warranty at this point.
Yes, that's right. My parents tried to trade me in once.
Did they really?
Yeah. They threatened to.
For like a newer model?
Yeah. My mom's contention is I'm making her look old. She doesn't really care how I look. It's just that it makes her look old. Thanks, Mom. See what you get for Mother's Day. So this pen thing.
The pen thing. Okay, yeah.
So this pen thing. I did what I could to resurrect the pens we had on hand here.
Mm-hmm.
And ink showed up and a couple of notepads to try out and that kind of stuff. Turns out really only one of them works well. And it is sadly not my favorite one of the batch because I was able to get ink into most of them. But my favorite one of the batch is it does not hold enough ink to be of use. It's got some bad seals in it because it's a little plunger thing. plunge it in and out, squirts ink inside, fills it up, that kind of stuff. Anyway, and that's a $50 repair, I discovered. So I'm not sure that's an investment I want to make necessarily yet.
Right.
For somebody who's just now starting out and trying it out and may just decide in a week or two that, nope, I'm bored. That's how it goes sometimes.
Well, speaking of the pen thing, I was going to hold this for feedback, but I'll bring it in now.
Okay.
Tiny, after hearing of your addiction,
Yes.
she gave me a podcast recommendation to pass along to you.
Is it The Pen Addict?
The Pen Addict, yeah. And that's addict as in addiction, not attic as in a storage space.
Right.
Even though I feel that's sort of a missed opportunity because it could have been the Pen Addict's attic.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm 50 episodes in.
Oh, imagine my surprise. Good, then that means I also don't have to give you a link.
There you go.
You could just
but now I have
insert it
to give
yourself.
everybody a link.
Yeah, but that's your problem now, not mine.
That's my problem. Yeah. Anyway. So after those disappointing results, and not being too sure exactly what I wanted to do or what direction I wanted to go in, there's a website. This is not advertising, people. This is where I went. This is what I did. I'm not endorsing anything or anything like that. I'm just telling you how it worked for me.
Though, if they would like to sponsor us.
Yeah. I went to a website called gouletpens.com.
Goulet? Like Robert Goulet?
Goulet. It's in the show notes. They produce a bunch of videos and whatnot, stuff like, fountain pens 101 and that kind of thing. They've got, I don't know, a couple hundred at least of videos. Plus they also sell pens and ink and whatnot. But what I did was, I ordered a couple of sampler packs of inks. You get like 8 inks for, I don't know, $10 or $12, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
About 1.5 ounces each. I got like some colors and I got some blacks because I want a really nice black. If I'm going to write with a fountain pen, I want a really nice black, not an off gray, not a deep blue, just an actual black, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then I ordered a sampler pack of papers because there's a whole bunch of different notebooks and things, and I don't know one from the other or anything like that. So I figured I'd try them out. They're little hand notebooks and whatnot. And that was great. And then I got my inks. I got my first ink on Monday. And checked the pens. And by Tuesday, I was sure that none of the pens that worked well enough to keep writing with were ones I was going to write with. So you know what that means? I had to go get a pen.
Right.
So I went back to Goulet Pens and I ordered, and this is going to mean absolutely nothing to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, let me see if I can remember the name of the thing here. You know what my memory sounds like, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like my memory. It sounds like typing.
Mm-hmm. Indeed it does. It is I know it's in that group. It's a Lamy AL something. A Lamy AL Star, which a lot of people I found are pronouncing it All Star, but there's not 2 L's. There's only 1 L. So it's Al Star. Lamy Al Star. Anyway.
Well, that is Latin for all.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
Maybe it's classical.
Maybe I doubt it, but okay. But then the star doesn't fit.
Okay. Well, maybe the star is decorative. Maybe it's a serif.
Okay. Anyway. So I ordered one of those, and all this will be showing up tomorrow, and then we'll see how in depth I am on this. If I'm in over my head or not. But I told you that story to tell you this story.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody sent me a birthday gift because I have a birthday coming out soon. I publish one every year. Right. They sent me, they must have been listening to something or paying attention when I was telling them something or whatever, because they sent me a notebook and a pen. And they just got here today.
Oh.
So I have a little notebook. It is labeled Notebook.
In case you forget what it is.
Right. Apparently it's made
well, you're
by...
getting old, so at your age, you know.
Yeah, at my age, it could be anything. It's a green room notebook. I don't know that means anything to anybody, but it's a very nice little kind of leatherette cover on it and stuff. And they even went to the trouble of writing my name in it for me in case I forgot.
Because you're, well, we've done that before, haven't we?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I'm hitting that off at the pass.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice. I've enjoyed that. And then, of course, like I said, I've got the pen and the inks coming tomorrow.
The problem is that I end up, at this point, my only updates are, hey, I, saw the doctor again.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to correct because I released information last week that turned out to be incorrect.
Uh-oh.
My knee is not dislocated. The orthopedist said so. Nurse Eric and a trainee nurse whose name I still don't remember misread the MRI report. Or, well, they read the MRI report, but they overstated what was actually going on. It turns out that all of this is I somehow pulled a hamstring. so I start physical therapy.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I did that over a year ago. I don't recommend it. It's not like it's a vacation activity that you want to get involved with.
No, you were laid up pretty bad with that, if I recall.
About 6 months.
Yeah. I'm hoping that mine doesn't stretch that long.
Yeah.
Because the weather is getting good, and I have to start jogging and bicycling again. I have to do something. For the health.
Do you swim at all?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have access to a pool. And I never really liked swimming anyway, and the chlorine bothers me. So.
Chlorine bothers everybody. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
No, I understand that, but it bothers me excessively.
Okay. Because my doctor kept telling me, you should get a membership at the YMCA and go swim in their pool. And I'm thinking to myself, sure, that's great, but there's not enough water in their pool. There's other stuff in there. The pool is filled to the top, but I'm not guaranteeing how much is water.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is that I will not go into a public swimming pool. Which includes the ocean.
The ocean, lakes, rivers, basically any body of water larger than your sink.
Any body of water that anything other than me has access to. There's a Twitter account on Twitter, I guess, which
That's
is
a good
where
place
a
for
Twitter
it.
account should be,
Mm-hmm.
called Learning D&D.
Right.
Who I've had friendly chats with periodically in the past. Maintains a blog over on medium.com. I think, yeah. Yeah, they're a user on medium.com.
Right.
And he put out a list of the top 10 best D&D Twitter accounts to follow.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was listed as, where am I? I'm number 6.
Oh, wow.
I don't know whether he's counting up from the top or down from the bottom.
Well, you're nicely in the middle either way.
Yeah, well, it either puts me ahead of Mike Merles or ahead of Chris Perkins, who he also listed.
Reasonable.
There's actually a bunch of other good people on there. I'm a particular fan of Tribality, which is a multi-authored, whatchamacallit. It's a blog too. Website.
It's a blog.
It's a blog. It's a website.
It's a bloggy website thing.
The thing is, like, I don't like to refer to my own website as a blog. Because I feel that I have surpassed blogness.
Oh.
Well, I mean, it's not like there's more. Yeah, I think of it more of as an online magazine, just written by one person. Because it's not like just these, it's not just tossed off random articles at this point, random entries.
Right.
There's series and there's a logic to it. And so I tend to be cognizant of other people, like Tribality. I would not call what they do a blog either. I would call that more, more magazine style content. They run a lot of different stuff. I guess it's just sort of this like blog has a I still think of like the prepubescent girls live journal. Like a tween-age live journal.
Sure.
That's what I think when I hear blog. I hate that word, actually.
Okay.
So anyway, but I suppose I'm a blogger. DM David is a blogger, and DM David's content is also really good. And Tribality, I like them a lot too. So it's a really good list of people, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So I wanted to just give Learning D&D a shout out and say thank you for listing me, and thanks for and shout out the other people who were cool on that list, and go check the list too, because there's other people on there.
Yep. Guess what?
What?
There will be a link in the show notes.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't do that thing where I instantly started spelling stuff out. I've finally gotten used to it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I make fun of like Wizards of the Coast and stuff for being, 5 years behind everything, 5 years behind the technology and stuff. And yet I still realize that I still think about the internet the way I did in the late 90s.
I mean, it's, there's nothing wrong with that.
I still type HTTP, okay?
Oh,
colon / /
Well, I've gotten over that part. Unless I'm using a system I am not sure about and how it wants to work, sometimes I don't even include the www.
Oh my God, then how does it know?
I don't know.
I still like it took me a long time before I even got used to like the address bar having search engine functionality to the point where I still occasionally will type Bing. I'll go to bing.com to do a search. I won't just...
Can you, I haven't checked this in years, but can you still FTP from your web browser?
I don't know.
I'm
actually trying to FTP to my website right now.
Sure, that makes sense.
It looks like you can, but I have to... Yeah, let's see. There's apparently options that have to be set to do this.
Okay.
But yeah, it does look possible.
Excellent. Good to know.
Yeah. I also did stop just short of like saying out loud my IP address there.
Yeah, thank you. It's very good.
Oh, password K, capital O.
Back in episode, whatever it was, 28, I think.
Yeah.
We talked about, somebody asked a question about how we do our mapping at the table for combat and stuff like that. Yeah.
I was actually going to bring up the mapping topic in the back end of the show, too.
Okay, we can do that.
Conversation that happened earlier today.
That's fine. Excellent. Nitsua wrote in by email, said, another good idea for mapping material is something called moving paper, which apparently you can get in 100 sheet lots. They're 3 foot by 3 foot, and they are $5 for 100 sheets.
Moving paper?
Yeah.
Why is it called that?
Because it's used in moving, and it is
it's
paper.
Like packing paper. It's basically packing material. This is what Bing is telling me.
U-Haul does packing paper.
Moving paper, Pinterest. Oh, wait, that's Pinterest. I'm so confused. I don't even know what Pinterest is.
What's a Pinterest? I don't know.
I'm so confused.
But yeah, it's you're right. It's basically just like what you would pack material with and whatnot. You wrap. It's 3 by 3, and Nitsua says that for whatever reason, players feel a lot more confident working with it because they don't feel like it has to be protected for anything important.
Mm-hmm.
So they're much more willing to interact and do stuff on it. And then I thought to myself, as I was considering Nitsu's informational update there,
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, what about butcher paper? Miles and miles of butcher paper for, gosh darn it, almost nothing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How well does that take writing?
Oh,
I guess you just
it takes
need
it
a
pretty
Sharpie.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, let me see here. You can buy, if you go to a Walmart, I'm being told, if you go to Walmart, you can buy 900 feet of white boardwalk butcher paper for $18.86. And I imagine depending on where you go, like Lowe's probably has some, or Staples or whatever, that you just buy quantities of, like nobody. Here's 1,000 feet of 40-pound, 36-inch wide white butcher paper for $60.
You know, it's so. Do you remember what an issue all this stuff used to be?
Yes.
Like
you couldn't get graph paper for nothing.
Right, that's what I was saying. Like, I remember photocopying the graph paper sheet that came with the D&D Red box.
Yeah.
Because you just couldn't go anywhere and buy graph paper. Even that was onerous.
And you couldn't print it off the internet because there was no internet.
Right? And that was like, I'm fairly, if you look back at old school dungeons, right? With all the oddly shaped rooms and stuff, I'm fairly sure that 90% of those dungeons were designed to use every square of graph paper because graph paper was too valuable to waste any of it on non-dungeon space.
Right.
I mean, when I was a kid designing dungeons for basic D&D, that's what I was doing. It was like I was filling every inch of that paper with a dungeon.
Yeah, I seem to remember when I was but a wee child that we spent at least one weekend just hand ruling graph paper, so that we had enough to do stuff with, you know, because there was a lot of, you know, like you were saying, a lot of dungeons that were clearly made by children who just wanted to be in a dungeon forever.
Right. I mean, well, that was what D&D was, you know?
Yeah.
The endless dungeon.
Yeah. And this corridor spirals into a dead end in the center, just so you can walk back out again.
Do you know what I came across last time I was home? I found a box of old role-playing stuff.
Uh-huh.
And in it, I found a few old notebooks and folders from God knows when. I found on college-ruled lined notebook paper a stack of handwritten character sheets for AD&D.
Yes.
Because I made my own, you know, and I made it. It was very nicely laid out. And then we would just photocopy that. Or I would just write new ones if I didn't have access to a photocopier.
Okay. So question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Of the photocopied ones, how many of them were goldenrod?
Oh my God. Actually, you know what? Not so many. Because, you know, I was actually within bike riding distance of my library. And so once I hit the age where I could be, and yeah, honestly, what age was that? I guess like 13 or 14, where it was, you know, I could go ride like, what was it, like half a mile or whatever. You know, my parents didn't care. You would just disappear for the whole day. Be like, I'm going to the library. I'll be home whenever.
The disadvantage we had was that there weren't a whole lot of copy machines around.
Mm-hmm.
There were lots of mimeograph machines in school, but try to get a character sheet printed out on one of those. So we ended up hand drawing lots of them, and I'm confident we came up with some better variations on the character sheet than were ever included in the books. You'd sit there and you'd trace out the little shield, and you get the little square, and I don't know, there's like a triangle or something. I don't know. Anyway.
I'm actually curious how many people who are listening to this right now actually know the word mimeograph anyway. Like, how many people know what a mimeograph machine is?
Oh, dear.
Well, because even by the time, you know, like when I was in elementary school, it was still being used. But by the, you know,
yeah,
like it was already phasing out at that point.
By the time I got to high school, we had copy machines available.
I remember absolutely the coolest thing. And this was, I guess I was in sophomore or junior in high school. I took some computer-aided design courses at that point, or architecture courses, you know, just for funsies.
Right.
You know, there was a technology track, which was funny because most of the people, like, it was all a part of the vocational education stuff.
Sure.
And most of the people who were taking those classes were taking them just to fill their schedule and sneak out behind the building and smoke.
Right.
And I was in like the electronics class and the I didn't do the auto shop, but I was in all those other classes, and I was like one of only 3 people who was actually trying to learn anything. But that was my first experience with a pen plotter.
Mm-hmm.
That thing was so cool. And honestly, I'm glad I took that course because it made learning how to use Campaign Cartographer a lot easier.
Yeah. In high school, I took a machining class.
Oh, that's cool.
You have the big lathe, the metal lathe, and all that kind of stuff, and welding and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one of the units in it was CAD/CAM, computer-aided design, computer-aided modeling.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
which basically meant, yeah, it was kind of cool. Basically meant you had to program in exactly what moves the thing had to make in order to produce a hammer, which was what everybody did. More of a small mallet, really, than a hammer. But the problem was, I got into the class and we started learning how to use the lathes and all that kind of stuff, which was fine. I enjoyed that. In fact, I made it a point to take the oldest, most out-of-shape lathe and use that on a regular basis because it was certainly a lot more fun to operate than the other ones I was seeing in there. But the point is, we started on that, and within about, halfway through, we got introduced to the CAD/CAM thing, and I turned out to be the only one in the class who could understand it.
Really?
Yeah, which means, guess what?
You were doing everybody's homework for them.
I was doing everybody's homework for them, having to type it in each and every time, and, you know, whatever little design changes they made and all this other stuff. So I made a lot of other people's hammers. Didn't make mine. And never did get back to finishing the lathe work because it took so long to do everybody else's. So that was my experience. But no, I like that. And I think if my general experience in the class had been better, I would be making metal dice right about now. And metal other things, I guess. I don't know. The other thing, since you mentioned the graph paper and whatnot, the other thing I wanted to point out, among the many things going on with actual quality notepads, to return back to an earlier topic, you can get notepads in 4 ways. You can get them lined, you know, your standard lined notepad kind of thing. You can get them gridded, so you got, you know, graph paper. And there's various types of grids as well that you can get. You can get them blank, but you can also get this thing called a dot pad.
Oh yeah, those are.
Have you seen these?
Oh yes.
Yeah, they're like, if you don't know what a dot pad is, imagine a piece of graph paper. Then remove all the lines except those that are at the vertexes.
Yeah.
Okay,
you can get them as dots or as little crosshairs.
Yep. And those are really cool to work with, especially if you're dungeoning.
Mm-hmm. They're also, actually, Tiny recently got into something apparently called bullet journaling.
Yes.
I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, it's a method of organizing your to-do list.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly.
And so I bought her a number of supplies based on... I think... I'm trying to remember who sent recommendations. I think it's someone who we are both mutually friends with, but I can't remember who it was. And I took those recommendations and bought her a bunch of supplies, and one of them was a rather nice little dot notebook.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, they're kind of interesting. I don't rate them so much for writing, longhand or anything like that. I find I need the lines.
Yeah.
For longhand writing, and that space between the dots, that's just a bunch of room for error. but if you're drawing something or you're drafting something, or that's the other thing I took was a drafting class. If you're drawing or drafting something or whatever, they're actually pretty good for that. So consider that as well. They're a little more expensive though. Anyway, Lincoln wrote into YouTube. Yes, you can watch the videos on YouTube.
I had no idea.
YouTube.com/digressions and dragons. He submitted a rather lengthy comment, and it was in regards to The Good Place, which we have discussed several times before. And he wanted to have us rethink one of the things we had said in our previous commentary, which was that Jason, I think maybe I said it, maybe you didn't, I don't know, was that Jason in the show was the weakest role in the whole show. Mm-hmm. Okay, the weakest link, whatever you want to call it. The four
primary characters.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Lincoln wants us to think about the fact that Jason is actually critically important to the central message of the show. Mm-hmm. Because he thinks that the basic theme expressed through The Good Place is that anyone is capable of being either a good or a bad person. Mm-hmm. And that what we have in The Good Place with our four main characters are opposite ends of two different spectrums. So we have Eleanor is sort of the low social status, low economic status, all that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Opposite her is Tahani, who is from a well-to-do family.
Right.
With lots of money and lots of privilege and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you have Chidi, who is highly educated, very intelligent, etc. Mm-hmm. And then you have Jason, who is none of those things.
Right.
So he thinks that Jason is there because it doesn't require you to be smart and well-educated and all that kind of stuff to be morally good. All right. I know you're going to have comments.
Yeah, okay.
So basically his overall point is that regardless of where you fall on these various social spectrums and whatnot, should you choose to do, he thinks the message of the show is that if you should choose to do so, you can become a better person regardless of where you are or what you start out as.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't disagree that Jason plays an important role in the show. Mm-hmm. And to be quite honest, what I will disagree with in terms of Lincoln's point is that I think he's grossly oversimplifying by saying, okay, here's this 4-point spectrum, or these intersecting spectrums, because you can divide up the main characters in a lot of different ways.
Right.
For example, you can look at Chidi versus Tahani and point to the fact that Chidi is someone whose motives are the purest possible motives, and his actual actions are terrible to the point of non-existent. Whereas Tahani is the opposite. She is someone whose every action did a great good for the world. And yet, because her motives were impure, she is still a bad person. Okay, and that's just another spectrum that you could divide it up on. I don't think it's as cut and dry as saying that. In fact, I think what you could actually make a case for is that each of the characters in some way represents a major ethical philosophy. You know, under a strict doctrine of utilitarianism, for example, Tahani would be considered a good person. Right? I mean, every action she did in her life made the world a better place.
Okay.
And under utilitarianism, her motives do not matter. Right? Anyway, I don't want to get into all of that, because the point I was just making, though, is that I'm not saying that Jason doesn't have an important role or he isn't important as part of the message of the show. I'm saying that he was the least interesting character. You know, he's just dull compared to the other characters. I think the question of his goodness or badness is the least interesting of the four of them. And there's got to be a least interesting one. I mean, that's just it. You've got four. One is going to be the most interesting. One is going to be the least interesting. And I like that Lincoln actually made this personal by pointing out that I would be drawn to Chidi because I am overly analytical and nitpicky.
Oh.
And therefore I would be drawn to a character who shows the way that overanalysis and nitpickiness can lead to, you know, be horrible to others, where in reality, I would argue that Lincoln knows absolutely nothing about me in my real life, and certainly not my moral stance on anything. And morally speaking, if I was ever guilty of anything, I would be more guilty, just showing a certain amount of personal judgment, of somewhere between Tahani and Jason, where I have done the right things for impure reasons of recognition at times. Not a lot. I'm not getting into a deep philosophical analysis of myself.
Right.
And also through simple laziness. Which I think Jason's biggest problem, by the way, is not necessarily his stupidity, but it is the fact that he is drawn to the path of least resistance.
Okay.
You know? So, I mean, but anyway, I reject the argument that I'm drawn to Chidi because I see myself reflected in Chidi. Right. I am far more practical than idealistic Chidi when you get down to it. You know? Okay. Anyways. So, but I thanks for the feedback. I guess. Does that sound disingenuous after? I totally disagree with all of this. Anyway, thanks.
Feedback is always appreciated. No matter what. Mm-hmm. As long as you don't tell me my mother doesn't like me.
Right. You can tell me my mother doesn't like me because she tells me that anyway, so.
Oh, okay.
She has made it clear.
All right. We're drifting far afield in terms of feedback for this next one.
Wait, then let me do a quick bit of feedback that also didn't end up in the show notes.
Okay.
Leland, on the website, on
right.
episode 28, I was trying to remember an RPG that I had written, the mystery punk rock alien RPG that I described. And he reminds me that it was indeed called Star Children. It's actually, the game is called Star Children Velvet Generation.
Okay.
Okay. Designed by Scott Leeton and Richard Rinaldo.
Uh-huh.
And I have no idea who either of them are.
Oh, good.
And just checking them on Board Game Geek. I also could not find anything else that they've ever worked on.
Okay.
So that was their magnum opus.
Wow. That's impressive.
It was an amazing game. I wish I didn't have to give it back.
Okay. It's fine. All right. We were talking a while ago about Ultima Online and their built-in ecology that failed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And how we ended up with the word shards to describe discrete portions of a single game and other uses.
Yep. I do remember that.
Okay, excellent. Bill wrote in on episode 28 to tell me something. But in order to get to what Bill told me, I have to tell you a story, another wonderful, amazing story.
Okay.
All right. So buckle in.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Garriott.
I've got my DS here. I'm ready.
Excellent. Thank you. Richard Garriott, Lord British, who you will remember was the creator of Ultima series and Ultima Online and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A few years ago, he partnered with NCSoft to make an MMO, another MMO.
Right.
Set in a sci-fi universe. And the really interesting bits of it was that it was combat was like a first-person shooter sort of thing.
Right.
But it had total, complete MMO stuff, storylines and quests and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had a very unique design. It had a lot of things going for it. It had a bunch of systems that were interesting. It was, I think,
just to make sure, we are talking about Tabula Rasa, right?
Yeah, it's okay. Tabula Rasa. Sorry.
Okay.
I was describing it and then going to name it, but anyway, okay.
I'm
Tabula
sorry.
Rasa.
I didn't mean to ruin the surprise. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking of the right thing as you were describing it.
Tabula Rasa was, I'm willing to say, my favorite MMO that I ever played. I mean, I even on a regular basis did PvP in that MMO.
Really?
Yeah, because the PvP was unique, interesting, and best of all, you didn't need a whole lot of people to be involved in it, and basically it was sort of a system of capture the flag kind of thing. But you would take bases and whatnot, and then you not only had to hold the base against invading people from a different faction, but you also had to hold the base against invading AI enemies within the game. So anyway, it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. a lot. And then Richard Garriott decided to become a space tourist. And theoretically, as sort of a way to promote this Tabula Rasa, he went up in space and spent some time in space and came back, and all seemed well until he got into the, like the 14-day lockdown they put you in when you come back from space or whatever it is?
Yeah, the quarantine. The
quarantine, basically.
Yeah.
At which point, NCSoft summarily announced the cancellation of the game. And a letter was produced in which Richard Garriott said that he was done with the game and was moving on to other projects, etc., etc., etc. They pretty much killed it in one fell swoop.
While he was in space quarantine.
Totally out of communication with anyone. So he didn't find out about all the...
That is a hell of a way to oust someone.
Yeah.
Or to kill their project. Send them to space, lock them in quarantine, and then cancel their project.
He didn't find out about any of this until it was almost all said and done. Okay. So anyway, they killed it. And that is one of the many reasons I will never forgive NCSoft and buy any of their products anymore. But besides that, they wrapped up the game. People have, it's my understanding, been trying to reverse engineer some servers for it. And we're so far down the road, it's never going to happen at this point.
Right.
People tried to buy the source code from them to keep the game running, and they're like, nope, we're shutting it down and all this other stuff. So anyway, that story then leads me to this story, which is where Bill jumps in. He says, Lord British has another MMO he's working on. In fact, it's about to come out of early access and into full release, called Shroud of the Avatar: Forsaken Virtues. Indeed, this is the case. In fact, it came out of early release or early access about 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Yep. And I didn't think a whole lot of this comment at the time I read it. I thought maybe I just skimmed over it or something. I don't know. And just missed it. But when I was putting the topics together for today, I came across it again. I went, wait a minute. I didn't hear about that, and I haven't checked it out. So I went over to shroudoftheavatar.com. There's a free demo of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some very weird information on this game along with it.
Really?
Yes.
Now, I do have to interject briefly because I've sort of failed here.
Okay, interject.
For a while, I was actually following the development of Shroud of the Avatar.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was even getting emails about it. I signed up for the mailing list just to follow the project.
Mm-hmm.
Never, I don't do early access in any way. I will not pay for a game until it's done.
Right.
And then it just about, I don't know. I don't even remember when, but 6 months, 9 months ago, it dropped off my radar and I totally forgot about it. Otherwise, I would have brought it up when we were discussing Ultima.
Right.
But as you mentioned it, because you sent me a message earlier that we were going to have to discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a chance to look at the website, but I'm like, oh yeah, whatever did happen with that?
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so continue. You say there's some interesting information.
There is some interesting information, both about the actual game itself and the development process of the game and the systems they've put in and whatnot. And I'm gonna go to their About page and start there, and then I will probably branch further off as we go along.
Okay.
All right.
About Shroud of the Avatar.
Yes, about Shroud of the Avatar. So this is apparently Garrett's first MMO since Tabula Rasa.
Mm-hmm. He's out of quarantine now. No space viruses.
Right. And it's the usual thing, world cataclysm, destruction of, I'm going to say humanity, because this is still all up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
Destruction of humanity, rebuilding of society, and oh, look, they've gotten back as far as the medieval period. Okay?
Okay.
Fair enough, right? Right.
Yeah.
You don't have a class. Instead, you have a path. And your path falls along one of three lines. Truth, love, or courage.
Okay, this is the standard morality system in Ultima.
Yeah, I've never played Ultima long enough to know, so you can fill me in on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It has, and this is just weird, it has... in amongst all the medieval kind of setting and whatnot, it also has mechanical robotic things going on.
Okay. There's actually also precedent for that in Ultima.
Okay. It's a little steampunky and all that kind of stuff, right?
No, there was actually space shuttles and TIE fighters.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that and being amazed. It also lets you play solo offline.
See, this is I'm looking at the About page right now, and it was the first paragraph that already had baffled me.
Yeah.
Shroud of the Avatar Forsaken Virtues is a multiplayer fantasy role-playing game calling upon you to return as a fabled avatar and quest to fulfill the paths of truth, love, or courage across a deep single-player story.
Yes.
I'm like, multiplayer fantasy role-playing game, deep single-player story. Hold on.
Yeah.
Then why does it need to be multiplayer?
I don't have a good answer for you on that, but
I don't understand that.
I can tell you it gets weirder than that.
Okay.
All right.
Alrighty.
All right. Apparently it has episodic content, with 5 different episodes, based on stories created by Richard Garriott and Tracy Hickman.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The single player offline mode is about 40 hours of play in an interactive world where the choices have consequences, etc. You know how that goes.
Uh-huh.
Then it has selective multiplayer modes.
Mm-hmm.
You can play the story online. You can play with everyone in 3 different online modes: single player, party only, and open. So you can put together a group of your friends and do it that way online.
Okay.
And then open is just basically a free-for-all. No classes, but you do basically level up skills and spells and all kinds of different stuff. There's skill trees to go through, options to choose, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Ultima Online was classless, wasn't it?
Maybe.
It was skill-based, I think.
It refers to these as custom decks of skills that you dynamically activate in combat. I'm not sure I entirely understand what that means, because I have not gotten more than about 2 hours into the game, which I will explain in a few minutes. Okay.
Okay.
PvE and PvP. PvP is consensual with open PvP flags, zones, and guild warfare. There's player housing, which is non-instanced, which means it's actually part of the game world. Finite, there's only so much of it. And embedded in the world with group living options.
Mm-hmm.
I dread the next 3 words I have to read, which is player-driven economy.
Yeah.
Because that always works out so well. But it's, a crafting system and okay, so now this is the interesting part. So
basically there's an auction house, is what it's saying.
This is the interesting part about this. The best items are made by players, and player items are the main source of loot found in the game.
Okay.
So
what
that's
if you're
interesting.
playing an offline single player?
I don't know. I assume it has a table of things that it substitutes.
Okay.
It's not a subscription. You just buy the game and then play the game. But there are in-game...
Which is fine because subscription models are done.
Yeah, sure. Anything you can buy with in-game gold. That you earn. There are some exclusive Kickstarter backer rewards that don't fall into that category, but everything else is, you can buy with in-game gold.
So no microtransactions.
Well, not exactly.
Oh, okay.
But all the microtransactions are largely cosmetic, with only a couple of exceptions, which again I will explain in a moment. It's got a full guild system and something called player-owned towns, which threw me for a loop. Okay. To get into this a little more in depth, I'm going to start at the beginning. Keep in mind, I have only played about a 2-hour chunk of the demo.
Okay.
The conceit of this game is that you are not a character in a medieval world. You are a person in the regular world who has uncovered information about a special secret world and then been taken into it as an avatar.
I was okay. Sorry, I forgot you really don't have any experience with the Ultima games.
No, I don't.
Because that was also just a conceit of the Ultima games, is that you were you.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through the moon gate. And you go into...
exactly. It's a moon gate. There's a whole thing.
Right, and you go into Britannia, and then you help Lord British start his religion.
Yeah, this is New Britannia, I think is what they call it.
So you are you go through the moon gate into New Britannia, and you help Lord British restart his religion.
Perhaps. I don't know.
This is a freaking reboot.
Well, see, this is the thing. The Kickstarter basically advertised it as a what was it? Inspired by Ultima kind of thing. So you do that, and apparently end up in a version of Ultima. I guess. I don't know. Okay, so the demo starts you off in a little tiny area with just enough information to get you rolling and make a character. Okay, you come in as this kind of ghosty looking thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You meet somebody, they give you some instructions to go look in a mirror. You go look in the mirror, you make a character, then you go to the Oracle, and the Oracle tells you a couple of things, gives you your path that you're on.
Mm-hmm. Are there like questions that ask you moral questions?
Yes.
Okay. Standard Ultima character generation.
Excellent. Good. I'm glad you're here to confirm all this for me, because this is all kind of... I mean, I've done the questions to determine your character and morality and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Before, so that's not a big deal. But then you get dumped into this little village, which, at least in my case, I took the path of courage, apparently. And I got dumped in this little village that has been attacked by elves. And there's some dying guards around and a couple other people and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're given a quest to pursue, but the game insists it doesn't have any quests.
Okay.
So I don't know. You basically just pursue whatever story you think you want to pursue.
Right.
How that's not a quest, I don't know. Not far enough into it to figure it out yet. But anyway, so I get into this village. I meet this knight who has been thoroughly stabbed. He asks me to take some signet or whatever to a different town, deliver it, tell them he sent me, and that basically starts things proper. But in the meantime, you're using this little area to kind of learn your moves and check things out. You find a sword, you go over and you start attacking the dummy, to practice, because that's what the game tells you to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you look around and there's not a lot going on. There's nothing to fight yet. But I will tell you, my character already has trouble with encumbrance. It operates on the anything that is not nailed down must be yours theory.
Right.
There's a couple other little quests hiding in there, but they're mostly to get you to look around and see what's going on and get a feel for things. I think I spotted a problem in it almost right away. I'm sure other people have spotted this problem.
Okay.
But it is possible with a sword and the training dummy to just auto-train your character in swords and strength and health.
Because you gain in skills by using them.
Doing things, yeah.
Right. That was the same way that Ultima Online worked.
And it's in the first area. There's no reason not to sit there and just train and train and train, as far as I can tell.
There's boredom.
Well, there is boredom.
There's not playing the game.
Yes, I know. But anyway, so there's a thing you can do, and that was my 2 hours.
Huh.
There's one other interesting thing about this, if I can find it again. Oh, it was it was over there. Okay. So if you go over to the Wikipedia article on this, the source of all knowledge.
Mm-hmm. I'm still not calling it that.
Yeah, you get down to the development section.
Mm-hmm.
The game was announced publicly in 2013.
Right.
It's inspired by the Ultima series, Tolkien, and elements of steampunk.
Mm-hmm.
It raised 1.9 million on Kickstarter and an additional 1.1 million just because it's a game people want to play.
Right.
Now, here's the bit I question. It says art assets will be partially crowdsourced.
Right.
And used assets will result in payment to the artist.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, the Dungeon Kit is available to developers who pledged whatever amount, $400 or more, that allows royalty-free reuse of the game's assets. So, here's the thing. In my quest for information about this game before I kind of dove into it and whatnot, I was told a number of things. One of which that nobody was impressed with the graphics. They all kind of thought they sucked.
Okay.
That the game was riddled with microtransactions and was therefore no fun to play. If you were to look in your Discord server, you will see I dumped a couple of screenshots in there.
Yeah.
The game does not look that bad, and I haven't even got my machine turned up all the way, so it's not as good as they could look. But the game doesn't look bad at all. It's perfectly acceptable. You know, there's all kinds of effects going on and all sorts of things, and it all looks very nice to me. Lighting and all kinds of stuff. So I think what's happened is people went and looked at the early access thing way back when it was barely out of an alpha state,
right,
and made all the determinations based on that.
Yeah.
Okay, which is ridiculous because the game is clearly still under development. But whatever. Well, that's what they did.
But here's the thing.
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't want it judged that way, don't put it out there.
That's it. You put it out for early access and you let people start playing it and say, hey, check out the game. Well, that's partly marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care whether this is just an alpha build and it's going to get better. Well, guess what? You're going to be judged by it. You put it out there, you let people play it, and people are going to,
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, but nobody ever went back for a second look as near as I can tell. Or, I'm sure people did, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the other thing is this microtransaction deal.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, it's mostly cosmetic.
Right.
Which is not a big deal. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, cosmetic stuff, whatever, spend your money. But I get to a point where all of a sudden it doesn't seem like this particular part of the game is cosmetic. And that is the thing about player-owned towns.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I understand it, you can buy large plots of land, and then you get to place it down wherever you want, and then determine who can come in and who can't. Right.
Right.
Okay. That is priced in something called 900 for like the holdfast kind. Right. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that currency is. Okay. But also, this appears to be a thing that was done very early on and may not actually be available now. I'm not sure. I can't really determine how that works.
Oh, so you think like it might have been for the early adopters? They were able to actually plop towns.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me, but that's kind of the impression I get. Otherwise, everything else is cosmetic. There's some game services, like if you want to switch servers or, that kind of stuff. Change your name or whatever, that kind of thing. There's some costing for that, which is always kind of in my mind, but whatever. It doesn't affect how the game is played, basically. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by this thing, and I want to see where it goes. But I'm not yet convinced I need to buy the full version.
Yeah, I will admit that you have me intrigued enough that I may sit and fiddle with the demo, with the free trial, just to try it out.
The other thing I wanted to mention is the way conversations work.
Mm.
Okay, you rock up to an NPC who has information for you, right? You can click on it, so you double click, blah, blah. They're not going to talk to you. What's going to happen is, like old school text adventures, a little window will pop up with their dialogue in it.
Right.
And certain words in that dialogue will be highlighted.
Highlighted, right? Okay.
Okay. Keywords, etc. All right. And then you are free to type any response you want into the box. And if it links up with something within that NPC's repertoire, then you get a piece of information. Okay. The obvious ones are the highlighted words you can ask about. But suppose typing's too much for you. Well, then you just click on the highlighted words and it spits out the response. There's no voice acting by and large that I've seen yet. It's just all text and text adventure type stuff.
Well, it sounds very true to the Ultima series.
Okay. So what it sounds like you're telling me is that he has redone Ultima Online.
Well, yeah, though there was a very I've been poking around on the About page and stuff while you've been describing stuff just out of curiosity. And there was a very interesting bit in an FAQ about this that kind of, I feel, explains it all.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, and it is... Where is it? The question... I'm trying to go back to where I was. It was basically, is this a sequel to Ultima? And the answer... I don't know...
I see it.
Yeah, you see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is this an Ultima sequel? This is not an Ultima sequel game or Ultima Online MMORPG, as those are trademarked by Electronic Arts. We're creating a new world for Shroud of the Avatar, which will adhere to the design principles that all of Richard Games adheres to. It is legally distinct from Ultima and Ultima Online. Please don't sue us.
Right. Okay,
which is why the capital is now Brittany instead of Britannia. I also was looking at the map, and there is a location known as like Mara Bray or something, which is like a one-letter shift from one of the 8 primary towns in Britannia, which was called Skara Bray. And I noticed that YEW, like the tree, is still a town because that's just the name of a tree, so that can't be trademarked.
Okay.
But like Trinsic and Jalome don't seem to be there. So this is very clearly a case of they wanted to make Ultima Online again, but they don't own it.
Okay. All right. Now, fair enough.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. This is the other thing I was thinking. All right. I like Tabula Rasa a lot. Right. And he did get screwed out of that.
Yeah, understood.
No matter what the actual story is, he did get screwed out of that.
Right.
And I was thinking, why not just basically redo that game and change, file off the numbers and let that exist again under some other publisher.
Right.
So, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of potential reasons. If we look purely at numbers, I think Ultima would win the choice of recognition.
Oh, sure.
But beyond that, Garriott might have been more attached to Ultima than Tabula Rasa to begin with.
Sure.
It was. The original game was based on his D&D campaign. He loved it. And he, like, the first couple of Ultima games, if I recall correctly, he, like, banged out all of the code for them himself in a basement in like BASIC or something.
Right.
You know? So including the one that came, what's now referred to as Ultima Zero, which was Akalabeth, which had this fantastic plot. And the plot of Akalabeth, the first game, was you wanted to be a knight for the kingdom. So the king says, okay, you want to be a knight? Go to this dungeon and kill a goblin and come back when you kill the goblin. So you go to the dungeon, you kill the goblin, and, you know, then the king says, wow, that was pretty impressive. Why don't you go to this dungeon now and kill an orc, and then I'll make you a knight. And then it keeps going on like that until finally the king's like, oh, you want to be a knight? Okay, go to this dungeon and kill a Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you have killed one of every monster up to and including a Balrog, basically every entry in the Akalabeth monster manual, and I think there were only 10 different monsters to kill, you were made a knight and you won the game. The end. It was just a great escalation. Okay, yeah, very impressive. Go kill the Balrog. Like, this is the job interview to be a knight? Knights in this kingdom must be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know?
No kidding. They're all 9 foot tall.
It was called Akalabeth World of Doom.
Oh, okay.
And then he went into the first Ultima game. Yeah, and then the second Ultima game involved time travel. And it actually took place on Earth, in several different time periods. And also you traveled to all of the planets in the solar system at one point. And then after that, it was the fourth game where things kind of settled down and decided to just root itself firmly in fantasy. But that was also the game where you were the player.
Mm-hmm.
And one day you're sucked into, there's like a Renaissance fair. And you go to the Renaissance fair, and you meet this gypsy and you have a tarot reading, which basically is your, answer these questions about morality, which is basically you generating your character. And then when you step out of the gypsy's wagon, you're in Britannia. And then, but at the end of the game, then you are actually teleported back to Earth. And then in Ultima 5 and 6, you are called back to Britannia from Earth. I think Ultima 6, like the opening cutscene, shows you sitting on a couch, like sitting bored in front of your TV, watching the news, and then the moon gate opens up outside and you're called to Britannia once again. So it was literally all that story of you were you from Earth. It was supposed to be the player, which was pretty cool, admittedly.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
I just hadn't run across that before.
Yeah. No, it was 4, 5, and 6 were very cool. 1, 2, and 3 were really weird. Well, the third one, like the ultimate villain turned out to be a computer and you had to defeat it by beating punch cards. Like, it was like this demon. And through the whole thing, you're trying to defeat the demon. It's like, oh my god, there's the demon Exodus, which was the child of the villain from the first game and the villain from the second game.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a child, but it was actually an evil computer, it turned out, and you defeated it by feeding it punch cards in the proper order. Because of reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's
like
fine.
I said, this was all based on his D&D campaign. TIE fighters, Time Lords, time travel, sentient supercomputers destroying the world, dragon turtles.
I'm sure it all made some kind of sense.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
But it was fun. Anyway.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks to Bill for pointing that out. I'm going to continue to play the demo for a while and see where that leads me.
And I think I will end up downloading the free trial and just trying it out.
So before we get too far along here, one of the things I want to do is remind people, just in case they have forgotten it or didn't understand it or whatever, that you are now 1 week into the book club time to read Empire of Imagination.
Oh, crap.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
I started.
I knew you would be. I knew you would be. Pursuant to some discussion we had last week, I have created a Goodreads group. The link will be in the show notes.
Okay, and for not me,
not you, no,
but for other people who may not be aware,
other people who are not you,
right? Because I know,
right?
What is Goodreads?
Goodreads is one of those websites where you can keep track of, rate, and review books which you have read.
Oh.
Theoretically, every book is contained within their database somewhere. I have run across one or two that weren't, but they're specialty products, like some obscure role-playing games and whatnot. Which I don't know technically if they would count as a reading book or not, but whatever. The point is, most everything is in there, and they they let you connect with your friends and people you know and whatnot. So I have created on there a group which is called the DI&D Reading Group, and it's just if you want to, everybody can log into that. Create your Goodreads account, log in there, and keep track of the books that we read. You can see which ones are upcoming and which ones are currently being read and all that kind of stuff. Plus, if you want to, you can use that space to discuss the books with the other people in the group.
Okay. So I guess I need to join that, huh?
Yeah, I just thought that would be interesting and fun to do. Okay. I realize that's going to probably split some of our commentary between there and the website, but then, who knows? We'll see.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Right.
If I remember.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. You do that. Right. I think I have created a challenge, which is a mini quest, if you like. Which is basically just to read all the books we read. Should be easy. For those participating, we'll see. And if I understand how this works correctly, you will get a little badge thing. I don't know. It's not really clear about how all that works.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. An achievement get, as they call it, I believe. But yeah, that's what we're doing. This is your reminder that you should be 1 week into reading Empire of Imagination. Again, if you have somehow missed all this and you need a link to the book, it will be provided in the show notes. I'm saying show notes a lot today, so that's a thing.
And if you do buy it, let them know we sent you.
Yeah, let Amazon know we sent you. Call them up. Tell Bezos. Is he still running the company? I don't probably.
Yeah, he's still the guy.
Okay. So that's that. Now there is a different thing I wanted to talk about, assuming you have nothing you want to talk about at this point.
No. I defer the floor to you, sir. I have had a very dull week.
You defer the floor to me. Excellent. I have been waiting for this moment.
It's not a permanent deferral. It's just momentary.
Fine. I had my first session of the Star Wars game, in which I play a disembodied voice, GMing a bunch of people through Star Wars Edge of the Empire adventure, which I myself have created. The people are the One-Tar, Steve CC, and a couple of their friends. They are in Portland, which I hear is nice this time of year. A little wet. Meanwhile, I am in the southern end of the state, which is also not so nice this time of year, but still a little wet. And I'm basically, they stream it on Twitch, and YouTube. And in fact, today they published the first session we ran last Thursday. They published that today on YouTube. So it's now there forever permanently. Very
cool. How did it go?
Mm-hmm. It went well. It went really well. It's an interesting mix of things that are going to be happening or could happen. Because we did a session 0 thing.
Right.
As the children call it. And one of the first things I asked him is what sorts of things they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an interesting list out of it. They wanted some ship combat, which is easy enough.
Right.
They wanted to explore a derelict ship, which is not quite so easy, but can be done.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice for the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm. They wanted some decent social encounters.
Okay, that's any role-playing game.
Well, yeah, up to a point.
Something that you would expect in any game.
Sure. They wanted a lot of good role-playing opportunities, which makes sense.
Right. That's also any role-playing game.
Yeah. They wanted some swindling opportunities.
Okay.
All right, because it's Edge of the Empire, so they're playing, scoundrels and things like that, bounty hunter scoundrels.
I assume they're all scoundrels with a heart of gold.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it. And this was the most interesting one to me, and maybe it's something we can get some mileage out of here. Tiffany specifically said to me, "Show me the world."
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll come back to that, but those are the 6 things they definitely wanted to have in there. So from that, I have created an adventure of some description. Basically, they start out, even though it's called Edge of the Empire, they start out close to the core of the galaxy, in the more developed places. And basically, what I did was I found a place that would make an opening crawl, the typical Star Wars opening crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote an opening crawl and I put it in there and it made one. And we played that at the start of the session. And then as soon as that ended, I immediately had them being chased down a corridor and being shot at and into a hangar. And then they were forced to choose one of 3 ships to steal. And then they were chased off the planet and they ended up at a space station where they met a person who asked them to do a thing to get them involved in the proper adventure. And they have taken the bait and are doing that thing. And then they got chased out of the station again and are going to be heading to where the rest of the adventure occurs. And you notice I'm largely spoiler free.
Right. You're not making the same mistakes I did.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's, it went really, really well.
Good.
Everybody appears to have had fun. I had fun. Watching the video back earlier today is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as I said, you can see all them and you can see their reactions and what they're doing, but all you can do is hear me.
And when you were doing this, did you have a video feed? Could you see them?
I could see them, yes. Because they were streaming on Twitch, so all I did was open the Twitch stream on my laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And monitor things that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was fine. It was like 10 seconds late, but it was fine. Given the Twitch delay. But no, I think it went really well. And do you know, I think if you're going to have a live stream of your RPG, it's actually better to not have the GM on screen.
Really?
Yeah, I know. And it sounds weird. I understand that. But what happens when you look back at the video that was recorded? What you suddenly have is a narrator rather than somebody else who is also trying to run the game at the same time. And I think that adds to the experience by not being able to see exactly what the GM is doing or thinking or whatever. You know, you don't have that reaction right out there for everybody. It's much more they have to react to the information they're being given rather than the information being involuntarily given by the GM's body and face.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works really well, frankly.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe that's something to think about in terms of other people who are doing live plays or actual plays or whatever. I mean, it's a totally different thing with a podcast because then you can't see anybody. But when you're doing a video stream,
yeah,
that's something to think about, I think. And then the audience just gets to look at the players and their reactions and feed into that. I did run into a couple of snags.
Oh, what was that? Or what
I
were
had
those?
I had forgotten how goofy the ship-to-ship combat, the vehicle combat is in Edge of the Empire.
How so?
Because if the system does have one major weakness, it's the way it handles vehicle combat. It's very abstract.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to know where things are and what they're doing.
Right.
And then the movement is not necessarily, I fly to the left, I fly to the right, that kind of stuff. It's like the movement is actually changing range bands.
Right. It's all it's relative ranges, right?
Right. So if you have one ship that accelerates and changes range bands, then all the ships that were behind it are now in a different range band, and they have to accelerate to get to the new range band, and that's like 2 moves to do, and it's like it's weird, it's non-intuitive, and it's really hard to picture in your head when it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then some of the moves, some are pilot only moves because he's flying the ship or she's flying the ship, and that's all they're the only ones who can do those things, like evasive maneuvers and that kind of stuff.
Huh.
And then there are moves that can be done by both the crew and the pilot, and then there are crew only moves, and it gets really complicated. And I was thinking about it today, and I think if I were going to rewrite the system, what I would do is, instead of having all these weirdo moves all over the place and having all this really abstract stuff going on, is I would simply, for flying at least, you would make a pilot check, right?
Yeah.
And you would get your number of successes and your number of advantages and your number of triumphs, or in, failures, setbacks, and all that stuff, whatever. And then based on the number of advantages and successes you had, you would have a list of moves that makes available.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you got none, then you don't have any moves you can make because you're not piloting well enough. If you got one, you might have a fly move, or maybe an accelerate. If you got 2, you'd have, some evasive maneuvers and that kind of stuff, and you could just keep kind of building out from there. I think that would at least eliminate some of the confusion about who can do what and when. But, whatever. It's what it is. I did the best I could with it. It turned out that I think anyway, maybe they don't, I don't know. It turned out that the actual space combat part of it was probably the slowest bit, which is clearly not what you want for space combat.
Right.
Yeah. And there just wasn't a lot I could do to speed that up, short of shouting at everybody to stop talking and make a decision,
Which is your prerogative as a GM.
Right. It's bad form, though.
I would argue it's your job as a GM, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shut up. You're all about to die. Somebody do something.
Right. Right. The part of the problem was that the system for the ship combat is so different from the way normal things happen when it's just you on the ground, whatnot.
Yeah.
That there's a learning curve to get into it, and then like I said, the problem with picturing what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe I can work on my descriptions in that area a little bit, make it flow a little smoother. But it was definitely the slowest part of the thing.
Well, it's interesting too. Like, having never really run anything more than one shots for live streaming purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is interesting to be able to go back and watch what you did.
Right.
And adjust to that, adjust in various ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, like having a record of your GMing.
Right.
Is something I never really thought about.
Well, it is interesting what you can learn by doing it, because at the time I was doing the ship combat thing, I knew it was running slow, but I didn't realize exactly how slow it was running. What really should have been like a 4 or 5 maneuver encounter, ramped up to like 8 or 10, something like that. Just because nobody was really familiar with how it worked and what they could and couldn't do. So there was a lot of that going on.
Well, that should, over the course of the campaign, that should go away. After about 5 or 6 sessions, people will probably be pretty good at it.
But it's one of those systems. It's one of those systems that's really a subsystem that only gets used in a very specific situation.
Yeah. So
unless you're actively doing it every session, you don't have that much opportunity to practice it.
And that is that is an issue that drives me crazy, because you see it all the time. The games, they'll have a subsystem for a particular thing that is, it only comes up once in a while. It's a fiddly or a complex or a corner case. So they build a subsystem, and those subsystems generally tend to be more complex and fiddly.
Yeah.
Whereas it should be the opposite. The less often you're doing something in a game, the simpler it should be. Because you're going to have less opportunity for players to get it down and remember it.
Yep. Yeah. I could imagine if we were running a game about being pilots, in the rebellion or whatever, then the ship combat would become very familiar.
Right.
But we're not. And I think one of the things I definitely want to do is I now want to crack open Genesis again and look at their flying combat rules.
Yeah, I still need to buy a copy of that.
Yeah, and see what's going on with them, because I'm hoping they've improved it somewhat. Because really, if I had my druthers, if this wasn't Star Wars, I would pretty much ignore the space combat.
Right.
It just wouldn't be a thing, because it's like I said, it's clunky, and it doesn't feel good when you're running it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's Star Wars, and there has to be some space combat in there.
Well, of course.
Because that's part of the genre. And especially when one of your players requests it, you'd better figure out how to do it. And I need to figure out how to do it better. So that's something I'm going to work on. Hopefully, if it crops up again in the adventure, and I'm not saying whether it will or it won't, I will be more on top of it by then.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but do you remember Alternity?
Yeah, vaguely. I don't think I ever played it, but I have looked through the books at one point.
I very much enjoyed the ship combat in that.
Yeah?
Yeah, though, to be fair, it was more Star Trek than Star Wars. It was very much more focused on the sort of stuff that you'd expect from, like, Bridge Crew Simulation. With the characters sitting at different consoles, and I mean, I know that the Star Wars combat does some of that. There were different positions and roles on the ship and different actions that can be taken. But there was actually some interesting stuff that was very reminiscent of Star Wars or Star Trek, like the engineer overclocking systems, routing power and routing damage control stuff and things like that. It was a really cool system. And it should be, like, I guess I should check out Sasquatch Game Studio, because their, Alternity should be coming out soon. They're redoing it. That's, that's Baker, Schubert, and Noonan's studio.
Right.
And I gotta think that core rulebook is almost ready, so I can buy it.
I hope so. Yeah, and you made a valid point in there that I want to go back to real quick, which is that while there are a number of things that characters can do in Star Wars inside a ship, you sort of have to know you can do them before you can do them.
Right. Because
what happened was I sat there with one character, a Wookiee, who had nothing really to do inside the ship.
Yeah.
In large part because the ship was pointed the wrong way compared to targets to fire at.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it would have been nice to have something to do while he waited for everything to get into position.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were, assuming you were a starship crew, because that was one of the conceits of Alternity if you were doing the starship thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a casual thing. It wasn't a thing like, I'll just throw in a starship combat now. It was, no, you want this because people need particular skills. And by choosing a skill, you were choosing a position and a set of options. So you could actually be the communication and sensors dude on the ship. And when combat broke out, you could do things like try to get a targeting lock or jam enemy targeting computers or jam their communications, or stuff like that, but, and because each player, it was sort of like the same way that when you just choose to be a wizard in D&D, the magic rules. When you chose that spot on the ship, you sort of knew what your options were and what your role in the ship combat was. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be running the communication and sensors station or whatever. These are the things these are the ways I can contribute to a combat,
right,
and that sort of thing.
So, yeah, maybe that's one of the things I need to do is work up a little worksheet that says, okay, pilots can do this, co-pilots can do this, mechanics can do this, that kind of stuff,
Yeah, and see, it's something, if I was doing, I can't speak to Star Wars because you're infinitely more familiar with the system than I am, but if I was doing a game in which starship combat was going to be a thing that would come up at least once every other session,
right,
then it would be something that I would work out with the players in character generation, where we would sit down and say, okay, when you're generating your character, you're going to be the Jedi consular or you're going to be the bounty hunter or whatever, but there's this other level of play. And these are the roles that, a person could fill during ship combat. So you also want to pick one of those. Where someone specifically, they spend the resources to be the engineer or the communications officer and make sure that all of the characters in the group have a spot.
Right.
It's something that I would take care of in character generation. Well,
yeah,
but then I used to
sense.
do that in Alternity too, because if you could have a group of characters who did not have the operational skills to make a starship work. So it was like, hey, listen, you guys are the crew of the starship, Schmenterprise. So
that ship.
Yeah, so you're gonna, in addition to on away missions or whatever, you're the face and you're the Marine and you're this and you're that. You also have to be able to fill a role on the ship. So I would basically ask people to pick two, I guess, classes is the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what I did with one Alternity group was each group, and it's sad because I had a lot of fun with Alternity and the campaigns never lasted long. But one of the things I did, and I would have loved for it to go on longer than it did, was I actually had the players each generate two characters. So they had a bridge officer character and an away team character.
Okay.
And that worked really well for the 3 sessions that we got out of it before. I think it was scheduling issues that killed that group. But that worked really well because then, it was basically switching between 2 modes of play. It did take a little bit of the focus away from the idea of, okay, this is your character. So people did get a little bit more attached to one of their characters than the other, which was a little bit of weirdness. But I think over time it would have worked out okay.
Sure.
Anyway.
All right, so let me ask you the question I held until later.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we're talking Star Wars, right?
Right.
And I imagine this could apply to any setting. But what does the phrase "show me the world" mean?
I wish you hadn't told me who said it, because I don't want to be mean. Okay?
Right.
It's fluffy. I don't think when a player says that, they actually know what they mean. Okay. And quite frankly, if a player said that to me, like, show me the world, my first response would be, explain.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, given that directive, I guess I sort of do understand. Okay, it's just, like, obviously... Wow, okay. In the context of Star Wars or in the context of the general role-playing?
Take it however you can get around it.
Okay. So, here's the deal, right? Adventures can be or campaigns can be very shallow, surface-level stuff. Go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, do this. And just be very quest-oriented. Or they can be a little bit more slow and give players more of a chance to interact with the world. To interact with characters and ask them about their background, even if it doesn't directly affect the quest that they're on, or to spend some time on flavor text as they're, encountering they come to a new city, and rather than them immediately just going to the palace and having their meeting and doing what they do, instead you spend some time allowing them to wander around the city and decide where they want to stay, and, taking in some of the local flavor and that sort of fluffy narrative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my sort of take on Show Me the World, is that the characters don't want to be rushed or the player doesn't want to be rushed from quest to quest. The player wants a chance to actually interact with the world, take an interest in things, get curious about things, and just, learn background information and exposition, and the sort of world building detail that, is sort of only ancillarily related to their quest. How does that sound? Does that sound like a reasonable explanation?
Yeah, that does kind of sound like a reasonable explanation. And in part, I took it that way, that they wanted a little more richness.
Yeah.
In terms of what they were seeing and where they were and that kind of stuff, which is perfectly reasonable,
Right, and also the opportunity to interact with things that strike their interest solely because it seems interesting.
Right.
Like, man, I'd like to know how this works just because it's neat.
Right. But
who are the Mon Calamarans? Tell me more. Yeah. Tell me more about Mon Calamarans. Those are a thing,
this is Star Wars, and Star Wars has lots of weird things in it.
Yeah.
And weird locations and interesting places to go. They don't necessarily have to be weird. They just have to be interesting. So I also took it as like, show me the weird and the interesting.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Because that's kind of what makes Star Wars universe.
Right.
You know, it's not just any generic space thingy. It's, you know, it's Star Wars, and so that's kind of the way I took it. And I've been showing them the interesting, you know, not the tourist spots, but the actual inner workings of stuff. And part of the reason I started them in the core is because I wanted them to have that experience, and I'm going to move them, you know, to the outer rim. And that's by necessity a different experience. You know, things change the further away from the core you get. Plus, I started them in an interesting place. This big space station they went to has things that you can't see anywhere else in Star Wars, you know? And so I'm just taking that along as well. So, you know, letting them experience a place more, get more depth out of a place, and then showing them more places where that can happen.
Right. The only problem, of course, is that you're working with four 3-hour sessions.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a rough directive.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
But I'm doing the best I can with it. Yeah.
In 12 hours.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm doing the best I can with it, though.
Of course.
I mean, and they understand. It's like, you know, I'm not going to take them absolutely everywhere. We're going to hit some highlights. I'll give you a flavor for the place and that kind of stuff and what's going on there.
Well, I mean, it's the Star Wars universe. So what do you got to do? You have to have one of the core planets that's an entire city is a planet. Then you have to do a desert planet and a forest planet and a swamp planet. And you pretty much got it, right?
And those are exactly the things I'm not doing. Because those are the things you can see on screen.
Right.
Right? We don't really need to go to Tatooine. We know what's there. We know what it looks like. You know, so we started in other places. We're going other places.
Wait a minute. You told me last time it was called Jakku or something.
Yeah, that would be the new series, Tatooine. Yeah, very good.
Right.
So yeah, anyway, that's the way my first session went. Everybody seems to have had a good time. Everybody is prepped to do some more. They have the appropriate amounts of fear and trepidation about session 2. You know, it was a good deal.
Good.
And then I found out my brother listened to it.
Oh.
And I got commentary from him, which whatever. You haven't run or played an RPG in years, so whatever.
Wait, that was
anyway.
his commentary, or
no? That's the grain of salt with which I took his commentary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, he made some good points, but you know, whatever. It's what it is.
Right.
So the next session is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Which means nothing in 2 weeks when people get to listen to this, but It means something to us now.
In 2 weeks, there will be one session left.
Right.
When this goes live, there's only one more chance to watch this.
Right. So, but I will link to the posted YouTube videos. Where do I put these things? I can't remember now. Where do I put the links? Could you tell me where I put the links before we run out of time?